To our panel. Joining me from Melbourne is Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer and from Sydney, Labor MP Michelle Rowland. Welcome to you both.
Great to be with you, Lyndal.
Hey, Lyndal.
If I've done my figures right, I think both of you recorded a swing to you in your seats in the election, so congratulations. Michelle, I might ask you first. There was a lot of pressure on your seat. It was, I think, the most marginal in New South Wales, in Western Sydney. You held on. You had a little bit of assistance from your Liberal candidate, didn't you?
Well, Lyndal, firstly, can I congratulate Kelly on the win in her seat and also being part of a new government. Congratulations to you.
Thanks,
but look, certainly it was a very hard-fought campaign that ran over 3 years, and I worked extremely hard out in the community. I said in my first speech I wasn't going to be an MP. You just saw at election time, and I made sure of that. And I think on the day, the feedback that I was getting on the booths, it's amazing how many people you end up knowing and how many people were coming up to me and thanking me for things that I'd done for them or support I'd given. I'm incredibly humbled and grateful for the support that's been given to me, and it was thanks to a great team effort on the part of my team.
Do you think that the strength of the local MP, the sitting local MP, and the strength of the local campaigns you ran were of assistance, given that the national campaign from Labor has been criticised?
Look, I was always focused on a very strong local campaign and the messaging that I wanted to get out, and we stuck to that. And I don't think there's any substitute for hard work, and that's what local members are supposed to do. And look, let's not forget, my opponent was getting $1.10 on the odds on the day. I had Liberal Party people standing at booths handing out, asking me if my CV had been updated because you've got only 3 hours left, Michelle, in your job. So they were very confident of winning Greenway.
Kelly, there would have been no stage, would there, where you were contemplating a loss in the seat of Higgins?
Oh, look, I never take anything for granted. And look, first let me say to Michelle, congratulations. I think it is fair to say she ran a very strong local campaign there, and she's obviously been rewarded with the trust of the people of Greenway. But certainly in the seat of Higgins, like Michelle, I also said to the people of Higgins that they would see me day in, day out, and I promised to represent their issues, both big and small. And I honoured that trust, and for that I think they gave again their trust to me for this election, and I will continue to work incredibly hard for them.
Kelly, your party is now in government. It does seem, from the way things are happening, that Tony Abbott will be hastening slowly in putting together the government. Is that a deliberate on his part to slow things down, to not appear in the media so much, to actually look like he's getting on with the business of government as well as doing it?
Well, he is getting on with the business of government, and I suppose one of the key differences between our government and the previous government is that we're not going to be talking about what it is that we're doing. We're going to get on with doing it first and then talking about what we've done after we've actually done it, rather than talking about doing it and not implementing. This is going to be an adult government, and I think this is what the people of Australia have been crying out for the last 6 years, to have a government that will be methodical, that will be deliberate, that will actually do what they say they're going to do and honour the trust that's been placed in them. That's what we're going to be doing. That's what Tony is focused on. That's what the leadership team is focused on. And I'm very proud to say that I am part of that team.
Are you sitting waiting for a phone call from Mr Abbott as he puts together his front bench?
Well, I've already been out in the electorate doing my job as a local member of Parliament. Already been attending community functions. I'll continue to go about doing that, and whatever jobs Tony decides to invest in different members of Parliament, I'm sure they'll be the right decisions.
Michelle, have you? I know it's only a couple of days since election night. Have you started thinking at all, or do you think Labor has started thinking at all about how it will approach the business of opposition?
Oh, I think so. And look, it was pretty clear, on the night that, and even before the night that Labor was going to be in opposition. And, I think the fact is we need to make sure that we stay true to, Labor values and principles. It's one thing I was asked today, what do you stand for right now? And I was very quickly able to reply, well, I stand for equality of opportunity. The things I still believe in are that your postcode shouldn't determine your future. Your country of birth shouldn't make you any less of a citizen and have have any less rights than someone else. So, you know, I know perfectly well what I stand for, and the Labor Party, you know, we've been around for over 100 years, oldest political party in Australia, and, you know, people had written us off completely, not only in Greenway, not only in Western Sydney, but completely around Australia. And the swings were, you know, we lost government, that's a fact, but, you know, it wasn't the sort of dire results, I think, in terms of seat losses that a lot of people were predicting. So I think we've got a really good opportunity to build, really good opportunity for generational change, really good thinkers who are in the parliament and, you know, will take on very important roles, I'm sure, and will be holding the government to account on every one of the promises that they've made.
We might just have a look at the Labor side. A cross-factional group of senior Labor MPs are working behind the scenes to keep a lid on any recriminations following Saturday's election loss. There has been criticism of Kevin Rudd and the campaign, but largely from the ministers who retired at the election. One sitting MP, Kelvin Thompson, has today made a strong statement about the changes he believes Labor needs to make. The leadership is still up in the air, with the likely candidates Bill Shorten and Anthony Albanese still to make up their minds if they want to stand for the job. Former Treasurer Chris Bowen had been named as a possibility. He won't be standing.
Well, today is the first working day of the rebuilding of the Labor Party. Of course, we now need to best determine how we can be the most effective, the most united, the most focused opposition that we possibly can be.
My advice to the incoming leader of the opposition is first, do less. Don't try and swamp the airwaves. Don't fall for the 24/7 media cycle. Don't dominate the airwaves at the expense of ministers and shadow ministers, members of parliament and other voices.
Kelly, I might ask you to get into the free advice business. You came into Parliament when the coalition was in the rebuilding process after the election loss in 2007. Do you have any advice you'd like to pass on to Michelle about how you go about that business?
Well, look, I'm not sure I'm in the best position to be offering Michelle advice, but I will say this. I think it is very important that all political parties, of all political persuasions, listen to the Australian people. I think that the Labor Party must heed the message that they have been sent. I certainly heard a litany of excuses earlier this morning when I was speaking on a program with Andrew Lee, where he said basically that the reasons that the Labor Party were out of office were because of world events and a variety of other such excuses. I think if the Labor Party take that message, they'll be taking exactly the wrong message. I think instead, if they realise that the Australian people have given a mandate to the coalition government to get on with delivering our very positive plans for the future of this country, to rebuilding our country to being the great nation that we know it can be and can continue to be and should be, then indeed they will be taking the right advice. But if they instead continue to make excuses, if they don't look to their own record, a record where they trashed our economy, where we now have more than $300 billion of debt as a result of their poor decisions, as the result of their wrong priorities, if they continue to make excuses for delivering a carbon tax that no one wanted, that they promised that they wouldn't deliver.
I might get a response from Michelle, because we have heard that list quite a lot over the election campaign. Michelle, I'm sure you'd like to respond to Kelly's points. I also want to get a response. One of the Labor MPs said today one of the mistakes they thought Labor made back in 1996 was to walk away from the records of the Hawke and Keating government and not make so much of them. And they were saying Labor shouldn't make that mistake this time. Are there things that principles, policies you should absolutely stick to in opposition?
I think that's true. And look, we did some great reforms as a Labor government. I was obviously only in for one term of those 2 terms that Labor was in this time around. But, you know, disability care, school funding reform, putting a price on carbon, a market-based mechanism to price carbon. And let's not forget, 2007, there was a very clear mandate, both sides. It's committing to putting a price on carbon with a market-based mechanism that was not honoured when Tony Abbott was in opposition. So I'll have none of this, I won't have any truck with this whole mandate business until someone explains to me, what direct action actually means. I haven't heard anyone expressing that yet. But, happy to take advice from, anyone, but quite frankly, I don't need it when you know that what you need to do as a party to rebuild is actually make sure that, A, you've got the right talent in place, and I think we've got some great depth of talent in our caucus, including being sport for choice for leader. We've also got our principles and our ideals. Certainly a lot of things that we have done. We'll need to make sure that we defend those things. And we'll be holding an Abbott government to account. When the levy comes in to pay for this unaffordable paid parental leave scheme, when we start to find out exactly what's going to be cut with the school funding reforms, the axing of things like the school kids bonus, when all these things happen, I will certainly be holding an Abbott government to account to my own electorate.
Just before I go back to Kelly, Michelle, do you have any thoughts about who might make the best leader?
I honestly hadn't turned my mind to it. I wasn't living anything beyond Saturday, as you might expect. But look, my understanding under the rules is that there'll be an interim leader, and that would be Anthony Albanese. Look, I think Albo, I've known him for 2 decades, and I think that he's one of the most inclusive, toughest, someone who is a real, not only a policy thinker, but also someone who has a great strategic mind. And I think that he will be a great person leading us into this period when we have to choose a new leader. And if we follow those rule changes, of course, then it will also be up to the rank and file to have a say in this. So
if there's more than one candidate,
indeed. But I certainly think it's important for me to be consulting with rank and file local party members.
Kelly, I wanted to ask you. Tony Abbott placed a very high premium on trust in this election, said he would keep his promises even at the expense of returning the budget to surplus. How important is it that you absolutely keep every single promise you made in the lead up to the election?
Well, look, it is very important that we keep the trust of the Australian people. They have honoured us with the great privilege of governing this great nation. The Labor Party, of course, really trashed that trust, and unfortunately we have seen the result in that, which is very low opinion now of the standing of our parliamentarians. That's something that is going to now need to be rebuilt, and it will take time to rebuild that. That is why the Labor Party recorded...
Though, in Parliament also have something to do with it?
That's why the Labor Party recorded the lowest possible vote that they have had for 100 years. So as much spin as Michelle might like to put on it...
It's fact, not spin.
I think that, unfortunately, that is the actual result. It is important that we rebuild that trust, and it will take time to rebuild that trust. But the way that we can do that is by delivering on our positive plan, by the plans that we have articulated to the Australian people, and we are very much looking forward to that opportunity in government.
On that note, Kelly O'Dwyer and Michelle Rowland, thank you very much for joining me after what has been a very busy 5 weeks.
Terrific. Thanks, Lyndal. Thanks, Michelle.